Hey, are we still under quarantine?
Yes.
Well, then it looks like it's time for episode 2 of our quarantine edition of Crit Day. Today's episode is brought to you by absolutely nothing. We don't have a sponsor. That'd be cool though, right? If you want a sponsor, hit me up. I really need to go outside. So today I wanted to do a little story, something a little different, something cool that I enjoy in the art sphere, and that is the rise and fall of the Paris Salon and how that kind of birthed the idea of modern abstraction or just abstraction in general. So the Paris Salon ran for 150 years from 1740 to 1890, and it kind of was art. Basically, what the salon did was they would host a show at the beginning of the year, and the pieces that were selected basically judged the style of what was good, what buyers wanted, what everybody was after in art for the coming year. So let's start at the very beginning. The Paris Salon was founded and run by the French Academy of Fine Arts, and its very first event was held in 1667. But the event would eventually grow and take a little bit more prominence. The Salon was the only major show in France, so the institution would literally decide France's presence in art. At the beginning, even though the shows were growing, the timing of it was sporadic, the process of selection was kind of all over the place, so it was struggling to take that next step. But in 1748, the Academy instituted a jury of hand-selected members who would decide what was shown and what wasn't showing, and this really gave the event a much stronger presence. And it grew even further following the French Revolution of 1789 to 1799, when the walls were opened up to foreign artists. By 1820, the timing had been figured out, making it a major annual event. The salon was staged in huge buildings. It was a massive event, and like I said earlier, it was art. The event was a hub for critics and journalists to report and judge the work themselves, and then this was a further way for them kind of to define what was art, and they would base all future judgings until the next salon on what they saw at that one. The mid-19th century was definitely the high point of the salon's success and influence, and once foreign artists were allowed, the salon didn't just decide what French art was, but all of Europe's art was. And we know that throughout history, Europe has been a powerhouse in art. But in 1863 is when things get interesting. So this was a particularly harsh year for the Salon. Over 3,000 paintings were rejected, including works by, and you'll know all these names, Manet, Whistler, and Cezanne, which outraged not only artists, but the public. I mean, these were artists who were growing, and obviously, even today, we know their name, so imagine them just being rejected as art. So this is where French Emperor Napoleon III decided he was going to fuck with them a little bit. But the problem is, he ended up collapsing all of this shit on his own. He put on what was known as, get ready for some awesome French, the Salon des Refuses, which in English, and which I can say, is the Exhibition of Rejects. And this was a show that was done adjacent to the salon, and it was all of the rejected work from the salon. So again, we've got over 3,000 pieces, and this is where the work that wasn't so heavily classical, like what the salon traditionally picked, was shown, and people really liked it. People went. Critics kind of shit all over it at the beginning, which I think was the goal, but the public and the artists, they liked it, and it gave credit to the rejection of the salon, the rejection of the institution. It was almost the birth of the outsider art. I mean, the Salon des Refuses, the Exhibition of Rejects, I mean, that sounds kind of cool. And again, although this show was started as a joke, after 1863, any show held outside of the salon was known as a Salon des Refuses. And there was really notable ones in 1874, 1875, and 1886. And its mere existence undermined the Paris Salon and its influence. It gave home to the avant-garde, and it allowed abstract movements like Impressionism to flourish, and the Salon suffered greatly because suddenly there was competition. Basically, what this would go on to do was splinter the institution. Because the Salon des Refuses was so influential, a bunch of other salons started showing. And when a bunch of other salons start showing, and there's multiple juries and there's multiple selections, we run into a variance of opinion. People were picking different work to be shown, and since it wasn't just one jury deciding what was shown for the year, there wasn't really a definition of what was art for that year. And so things like, again, Impressionism and other abstract movements started to arise. The Salon was heavily rooted in the classical. So things like realism and portrait painting, traditional scene painting, a lot of the stuff that we'd seen for years and years and years prior was what they liked. So if you did anything outside of that, there was a good chance that it wasn't going to be shown. But now, with multiple salons arising, there was a good chance that it was going to be shown. And since there was competition, people were able to curate what they liked based on what show they went to. Cruising through this one. The gist of what this did, though, was show that there could be other art shows. And since there could be other art shows, there were. And suddenly, being rejected by the Salon lost a lot of its presence. Because if you were rejected by the main salon, you could be accepted by another one. So now artists had much more opportunity, and it was great for the art world, but Napoleon III kind of collapsed his own institution by trying to be a dick. This is where the whole world shifted, because when you have, say, 5 people on a jury who are selecting what is good in art, then you've got a pretty clear definition of what art is. But when there's a bunch of competitions, several different shows, several different juries, people are going to judge work differently in each one of those. So it kind of gave birth to the modern art sphere of so many galleries, so many selections, so much opportunity for artists, and the ability for anything to be art. And it was really beneficial. I mean, who would have thought that in a year where over 3,000 pieces of art were rejected from a show, it would unintentionally change art for the better forever and change what the definition of art could be? I mean, think about if something like a salon existed today. It just wouldn't work because anything can be art, and there's so much opportunity for artists to be seen out there that no institution could ever really say that isn't art. In fact, artists would probably wear that as a badge of honor in the contemporary sphere. Did I say spear? In a world where artists can be seen more, then there can't really be an institution that decides what is art. And perhaps that's for the best. Some people might disagree, but I'm very interested to hear your opinion. This was obviously a bit of a shorthand explanation of what the Paris Salon was and its collapse, but it's a really cool story. I wrote a Prime Cuts blog about it a little while ago when I was doing some research on censorship in art, so I'm going to link that down below. And I strongly suggest that you do a little research on the Paris Salon yourself. It's a really interesting topic. Thank you for joining me for another episode of the quarantine edition of Crit Day. I have been Forrest. You can follow me on Instagram at ForrestHinesArt. I've been painting a whole lot during this time stuck inside, and I go live on Instagram all the time, so come join me. Let's have a chat. For all things Plebeian, follow both of our Instagrams at plebeian_us, the home for all content like this, and at plebeian.mag for the journalistic content. Visit www.plebeian.us for all things content. We've got interviews. We've got the home of our podcast. We've got a great interview with Brian Wooden. If you watched yesterday's episode, you're already checking in on him, dropping later today. Like us on Facebook, Plebeian Inc. Follow us on Twitter at Plebeian Deli, and subscribe to the YouTube right here. We do all sorts of stuff. We've got video stuff like this, video interviews. We've got podcast highlights. In fact, one of those will be going up with this video. Check the description for all the links. Leave a like, and I'll talk to you tomorrow for another episode of Crit Day Quarantine Edition.